Welcome back to Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio. This is Kristina Liu, your producer, who is now playing host for this segment. I am with my co-host, Otto Los, and you are listening to 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. And what a first segment we had. Otto, I was writing down all kinds of notes. I think, stress management is the perfect way to kind of kick off. Oh, Otto already has type notes. Is the
he said so many things that, first of all, like I said, and he was honest about it, it's easy to be a skeptic
Absolutely.
about
I'm
what
so
they were
glad you
talking
brought that
about,
up.
right? That there's a magic wand that you just touch something and whatever, and it goes away. But I think seeing is believing, and he does sincerely believe.
Mhm.
And I think probably people could go and try something and okay. That was the executive
I
producer,
like that. Look at him. He gets notes brought
my
into him. This is
wife.
impressive, Otto.
I think that the concept. I know a lot of people. What he said during the break that we didn't cover on the air: treatment failure. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people who have gone for years
Years, yeah.
for counseling, if you will. Now, I'm sure there are times where it's good, and I'm not saying it's always bad, but I do believe that there are times where it just goes on and on and on, and they never really fix what is back there that's bothering them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that was said by Bill Saltz, who was on the first segment, is uh, that there's a buildup of trauma. Like in my generation, I sometimes will admit that I have a difficulty understanding why some of the younger people
Yeah.
have such a difficulty handling COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look back, and when I was in that category, social media did not exist. Um, the internet did not exist. The news on television was one channel or two,
Right.
and it didn't cover everything going wrong in the planet. Uh, so we didn't have as big a buildup of trauma, which is the words that he used, as exists today. And I think if you pile enough stuff up, you've reached your capacity as far as trauma goes.
No, I
And
think you're so right. We've talked about this so many different ways on this show as well, because I think, it's difficult, right? It's human nature. Like, it doesn't make sense to you, and that's even when someone, and that I've, worked on over the years, when you see someone stressing out about something or worrying about something and it doesn't, you're like, why are they worrying about this? It doesn't even make like what, but that's to them is a worry, and that's something that's very real to them, and I always say that I've had this conversation with my mom, numerous times. We were just having this conversation during Christmas break. She was like, so many years, and my mom is like, we always call her like the human sponge, right? So anyone's problems, even like, her friends, her family, and of her family, it's even worse. She just takes it all in and like soaks it in. And this has been for years upon years upon years. This, like, my mom was just this person like her whole life, and she was saying to me the other day, she's like, I have just feel like I've reached my quota, so any little thing now that you normally could have dealt with in the past, more in stride, is just exacerbated. And I was trying to explain that to like my brother, because you could like lose pain and be like, oh, why are you worrying about this? You're just getting yourself sick. But like, to really think, like, I mean, and when Bill was saying that, like, it really hit me home, because you just think about all these little things that are just build up, build up, build up, and you just hit to a place where you're like, I just don't feel like doing it anymore. Like, it's just stressful. It's too much. And you really have to be very mindful of that in people, because it is easy to be like, I don't get why, this person's worried about this. And I even can feel myself sometimes like, why are they worried? And then it's like, no, this to them is a very real worry, and whatever it might be that doesn't make sense to you. And it's just, I think it's just important kind of way to always have that in the back of your brain, because it is
another
easy.
way to slant this stuff is I can't remember where some class I went to uh, back when, and the words perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody looks at a tree and tells you that that's a pink Volkswagen, and they tell you that over and over
Yeah.
again, that's their perception.
Yeah.
As strange as that seems, but that is their perception,
Yeah.
and perception is reality. And and to, I'm sorry, this didn't come up during the last segment, but how people perceive
Yeah.
things. Um, some people perceive something and it's traumatic,
Hmm.
and then other people perceive it and it's not traumatic to them. So we're all different, and we all have a
Yeah,
different capacity for trauma, if you will. Uh, and what is trauma is really relative to that
absolutely.
individual person.
Right.
Um, and I do believe that what came up on that end of the segment is that social media and the media contribute to
100%.
overloading your
Yeah.
capacity of trauma because it's what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of bad
It's
stuff.
so much, and that's what we also were discussing during, Christmas break, me and my family, because like, we're it's still like, listen, we're obviously all in a better place, there's more of an understanding of things, but we're still like, it's constantly in our face, like so many different things, including COVID. I mean, how many people now during the holidays have you heard who was sick, and this one and this one? So you're still, it's always there, and you're like in this state of constant like worry about it, and I was saying that to Jay, my husband, because we were just saying like, you know people still just fully don't know like much how much your brain and your mental health has been affected by all of this, and so much of it is because of like the media is just focused on, and like these it's your body is constantly in like a high alert state, which I know it. I can feel it in myself at times. Like you'll hear something and you're just like, you just immediately start kind of panicking, and that's social media, is just, it's constantly in your face. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm aware of all these things, but I can still fall into the cycle like very easily, so it's just it's something that you constantly need to be aware of.
Your social media circle is not like it would have been back in high school, where some kid is knocking some
Yeah,
other kid, and
right.
then as a whole group all of a sudden decides that
It's and that's what
Christina's a
Bill,
moron
yeah.
and we don't want anything to do with
No,
her.
it's I say it all the time, because listen, I am lucky, it was like there was little dabbles of social media towards like, the end of my high school career, it wasn't as, crazy as it is now. But I would never. I am, thank the Lord, that was not part of my growing up, because I look at my friends' children, now who are, they're still like little kids, but they're approaching, teen years, and I could see it in the different waves of things. And my friend's little daughter I saw over the break, is like, she's gonna be 10. And she was like, showing me, because I mean, I'm into these things, I'm knowledgeable about, stuff that goes on. And, but she was so focused on TikTok and the likes, and, because her mom only lets her do like a dog TikTok, with their TikToks of her dog. Like she can't show herself. But she was so like, that feeling, and I can see it in her, of getting all these views and these likes, was really correlating to, how she was feeling about herself, and I was like just sitting there, and of course you want to be like, oh, that's great, it's wonderful, but it's just, it was such an eye opener for me, like, oh my gosh, like this is just like a very real thing now, and it's, you really have to, as a parent, as someone in a younger person's life, really like make sure they're aware that this is not reality. And my friend does that with her daughter. She really sits down with her and like explains to her, because I think you need to, because it's so easy to get like sucked up in this, constant, likes and follows, and it directly correlates to your self-worth, and it's just it's
You know,
really
you
crazy.
you talk about it and it's not going away,
No.
right?
Mm-mm.
So what has to happen, and you use Rebecca's words about uh, you have to manage it, you can't
Yeah.
control it,
Right.
and that's only going to get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of lying that goes on the social
Oh my
media.
gosh, of
Yeah,
course.
we got classic examples of it every day, like a local congressman. Uh,
Mhm.
it's just
Well, you know
uh,
what it is too? It's on so many different scales now, right? So like before you think about that, there would be, listen, it's the media, right? So the media will always have some kind of spin forever, and that's just how it always has been. But now there's so many different outlets for it that like, and everyone's an expert, which I'm sure everyone's an expert on everything. They, like they just know the truth, and they say everything they say is as if it's fact.
Yes.
So it's very easy to take it in there and and go with that, and it's you have to really, as you said, manage it and manage the way you're utilizing it to maintain your sanity. Listen, I use my social media really as a positivity kind of platform, right? I'm not going to be there.
And you do a good job.
Thank you. No, but I really, I feel, and like, listen, I have so many friends that it's like every thought that's in their head is put on there, and it's these like, and especially if you're younger, I mean, I look at when my brother was younger, he would get mad at someone and boom, it was on social media like in 2 seconds, and that's only getting worse. And I think, and I also see older people. I have some older relatives also who, will, have everything out there too. And it's,
I've seen mother-daughter have a battle on
it's
Facebook,
so
you
wild. And
know,
I just pass
instead
right
of
through it.
talking to each other.
It's insane. It's really, um, it's something that it's you have to really be aware of, and I think that people don't even understand like how it affects them, and that's what I'm saying. Like people of all ages, and I can only imagine how hard it is for a child who doesn't know any better. And I think Bill said it great in the first segment. With social media, you know, it can just spread like wow. So this little isolated trauma that might have been you and another person having some kind of disagreement or mean words exchanged or whatever it might be, now has spread like wildfire. And then, this is why bullying gets so big on the internet. So it's
Just talking out loud about it, I could visualize down the road that they almost need to have classes in school,
absolutely, I totally agree with
all
you.
right,
Right.
about social media and
Mm-hmm.
all that goes on around it,
Mm-hmm.
the pluses, the minuses, what you should not do,
Yeah,
uh, and start at an early age,
I totally
uh,
agree with you.
you know. Um,
Because I
it's
think that's the only way to like manage it, because and listen, it's never gonna be perfect. The sheer fact that this is there, I'm 37 years old, and there are times that I can be like, oh, I'm like, oh, everyone's doing something so fun and I'm not doing, and I'm like, I'm an adult, right, that is aware of all of this stuff. And a child who doesn't, so that's why you really, and you need to have these conversations, and I think it's a great idea, Otto, about the classes, because listen, it's just good. I mean, it can help at least educate you. It's like what we say with scams, right? We can't prevent scams, but what we can do is, educate people about what to look for and, things to expect, or what to do. Like that's all we can do is talk about it.
you
And that's
said
it.
we're talking about kids. I think it applies to adults as well because a lot of adults like me,
Mm,
this didn't come into my life until I was much older.
right.
Uh, so now all of a sudden, people read some of the garbage that's on there, expressed by who they have no idea.
Right.
All right, but it's accepted as a fact of life
Yeah.
that JoJo killed JoJo's sister
Right.
and shouldn't run for politics anymore.
Yeah.
Well, who wrote that?
Yeah.
Who's JoJo?
Well,
Uh,
it's literally like the in-print version of the game telephone. Because it just like, and it's just so easy now to be like, and you see it in print, you're like, oh well, it's got to be, factual. It's in print. It's
yeah,
just
in the world of politics, I don't care what party or what
mhm,
group or whatever.
mhm.
It doesn't even have to be, can be a subgroup within
Right.
politics that decides we're going to have a little marketing campaign.
I know.
All of you put this out on
Yeah.
wherever, whatever your
Hmm.
choice of gossip is. And the next thing you know, it's gone to a
Yeah.
couple of million people with a complete lie that was created by a group, and
I
now
know.
there are people who believe
I
it,
know. It's
and
because
then they
when you like
become so
really think about
greenwashed.
it, it's
Yeah,
crazy. I know.
I
It's
mean, it's you and I could start something, and
mhm.
we could spread it with no problem.
Yeah.
We really could, and there has to be no fact behind it whatsoever.
No,
We can just
I
make
know.
up a good story, you know.
Yeah, listen,
How
it's
Christina wound up winning $43,000. No,
Otto, we
not
weren't going to tell anyone
43,000,
that.
43 billion.
I mean, listen, let's spread. Maybe that's manifesting. I don't know. We might have to put it out there.
That'd be an interesting, if we could ever come up with somebody like Bill, frankly, would be one that could be explored a little further.
Yeah,
And other people about social media.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I'm
And
a
I think
big
it's gonna
user,
be,
as you know,
yeah,
of the internet. All right. I think it's a fantastic tool, uh, but you have to learn to screen out the garbage,
mhm,
and you have to be skeptical. There's no
yeah.
question about that. You know,
No,
you
I
really
think
do.
it's important, and I'm
But
really glad that
anyhow,
we started our new year with a topic like that because I think it's it's a work in progress, right? Like I love these topics, but I'm just as guilty as anyone else for getting myself stressed out or anxious or whatever it might be. So I think it's just good to have these little kind of reminders. And listen, I've heard the term havening. I didn't fully know what it was. So I'm glad that he kind of went into depth.
I'm still not really sure I know completely what
Yeah,
it
I
is,
mean, well, that's the thing, right? I
right?
think it's until you
I
actually
think we really need almost to have like a live
right.
uh,
Well, I'm
visit,
totally gonna look into it further because I'm
and
curious. You're
somebody
right.
would be the patient of
Yeah.
how this goes. Um, and I don't question Bill. I don't question that it works. Uh, but seeing is believing, and
Yeah.
it's like if it's too good to be true, if it sounds, I don't think that falls into this category. I think
Yeah.
you know,
No,
uh,
and I think it's important to know because right, like what might work for someone else might not work for someone else. So it's cool to have these different treatment options available out there and listen, it was just it's great. And I've heard wonderful things about Bill, and I'm so glad to have him on because he was fabulous. So it was a great first segment. And oh my gosh, Otto, we are approaching our break of Talk of the Town. This is Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We will be back with more things going on in the town.
So I get this call from my grandma, and she's like,
"What's a podcast and how much does it cost?"
So I tell her, podcasts are like radio shows, but you can download them on any device and listen to them anywhere at any time, and they're free. And then she says,
"I see, but where can you find good ones?"
And I'm like, go to wcwp.org/podcast and check out the lineup of original shows, or download any podcast app on your phone or tablet and search for LIU Studios. And she's all like,
"Oh, that sounds easy."
and then she asked me what an app is.
LIU Studios podcasts, available on any podcast app. You know, those little button things on your phone screen. Just ask your grandkids.
And welcome back to Project Independence and You Community Talk Radio here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We are in the middle of Talk of the Town. This is Kristina Liu, your host, and I am co-hosting with Otto Los, and we are just talking about stress management and everything, that's on our brains, and of course the town. It's our first show back. We have so much to catch up with. And next week, I want to remind people we're going to have a really great show too. We have on Karen Blackburn, who is from AAA, and she's going to be talking about winter driving safety. Even though it doesn't feel like winter outside right now, which listen, I'm not complaining.
I'm just looking out. Is it doing anything out there?
It doesn't appear. It was like raining a little bit, but it still feels kind of warm. So
Yeah, what was 62 degrees yesterday?
yeah, I'm not gonna question it because I like this. So but anyhow, we will be talking about winter driving safety, and we will have on comedian Mark Breyer will be on during our Talk of the Town segment to do Laugh Out Loud comedy for seniors. So should be a great show. And then we have some other wonderful guests also coming up in January as well. So just stay tuned. All this is archived on the WCWP YouTube page or on the Project Independence website. So if there's anything you missed, please check that out as well.
And YouTube.
That's right. The YouTube is my favorite way because I love to constantly sending those videos around to everyone. So definitely check that out. And also coming up in January, just a little glimpse, We have on Long Island Housing Services will be on, and then we will have a doctor from Northwell Health doing staying informed and in control of your own healthcare, tips from your neighborhood general surgeon. So that should be a great one too. And I also in February, I'm in the process of booking that. We'll have the supervisor will be on, Supervisor Jennifer DeSena, which I'm very excited about. She will do a little recap about the state of the town. So that should be really great. You know, her first year here and just some updates. So I think that will be wonderful as well. And Otto, before we dive in, how are you, my friend? How's it been? How's your holidays been?
Everything has
Surviving?
been busy, but good. Interesting, and I'm going to qualify this statement for accuracy. One should call. But yesterday, a family member had to go to the hospital. So her son called 911 and they brought her, and the ambulance people and the police department said, normally she would go to St. Francis. They said, no, St. Francis ER is full. They will not take anybody else. All right.
Wow.
Then my wife was at her doctor, a totally different scenario, and formerly Winthrop. Her doctor told her that Winthrop's ER was full. They weren't accepting anybody. So she ended up on Community Drive at Northwell. And before she left, I was told that that was also told now that it was full and they weren't accepting anybody. So my point is, if you have a reason to get involved with anything like that, somehow you either call the ER if you can do such a thing, or call the hospital and find out what the story is. Apparently these are all because of this respiratory stuff that's going on. You know, and not COVID. You know, flu. If you didn't get your flu shot, that's a good idea. And you know, it's just a lot of stuff going on.
It is. It's hard.
But
It's
I'm
got
not trying to be negative. I'm just
no. It's just listen. I think it's an important thing. Listen, everyone, you have to be you know, living under a rock to not know about all the crazy little illness things flaring up everywhere among people. So stay healthy, everyone. You know, I think it's important to, you know, still kind of follow. As I was laughing with my husband because Jay said to me, so listen, he's like, I'm still following like all the protocols that I followed, you know, this whole time. You know, he's like, hasn't done me wrong yet. So, you know, whatever it might be, don't forget to do, you know, your little kind of things that keep you healthy, whatever that might be, and just you know, wash your hands, right? We want people to not lose that, to not lose your washing hands. And my whole thing, as I said, me and Jay go, if you're sick, just don't go around other people, whatever your sickness might be. It could be a cold, it could be COVID, it could be some kind of respiratory, whatever it is. I think that if everyone just kind of operated under that playing field, we'd be okay. So just stay healthy.
And that's not a playing field that my generation was used to.
Yes.
Because people would go to work and they'd be hacking all over the place.
I know, and it's
you know,
quite the
like you were a warrior because you went to work when you were sick.
Well, I laugh about that all the time with my husband because you know, we both live in jobs where you have, you know, sick days and stuff, and we laugh because we say, you know, that's what they're there for, right? Like, use your sick day for when you were sick. Do not come and infect the entire building. So
yeah, my generation.
No, I know.
That wasn't the mentality.
That it certainly was. I know, because my husband works a lot of people and it drives him insane because he's like, why are they here today? So, but
true.
Nonetheless, you know, I'm on so many different newsletters a lot of the time because of wonderful guests we've had on our radio program. And one of my favorite newsletters, Otto, I know you subscribe to them too, is the Senior Safety Advice newsletter. Via those two women we had on our show, they did a great thing on Alexa for us, and they just have such a great like tips and tricks and a good variety of stuff. I actually really enjoy going through it. You know, I learned something new, that January is National Hobby Month, which is something I could certainly get behind. I love a good theme in a month. But I was thinking, you know, starting off the new year, it's important, you know, there's so many people that they're retired now and they might not, have as much going on. They're kind of just sitting around all day long, not doing anything, and I'm always the proponent of how important it is to whatever it might be. I'm not here to judge your hobby, choose whatever you can do. It could be something educational or creative or just something fun. I think it's important, to constantly do something to stimulate your brain and just your overall happiness in your life. So just, it's
And me,
something.
I have a fair amount of hobbies, I would
Yes, right.
say.
I don't he's not sure if he can take on anymore.
But during COVID, I added something, and that was making jigsaw puzzles.
Yes,
Uh,
I remember.
and I haven't done it lately, but it it was actually pretty good to do during COVID.
Yeah.
And frankly, it could be good to do now if you've got nothing much
That's
else you
right. And
got to
I
do.
think, that these are all things, like winter, right? You're home more likely, so to develop these things. My husband during the break bought a bass guitar. So Jay is now just learning. When he was younger, he used to have one. And then he kind of like gave it up. So he and I'm always a proponent of, learning some kind of musical instrument. I think is something that's so cool to know.
Do you know one?
I do not. I said, listen, I'm a permanent groupie, right? So like I said to Jay, I said, I will be your number one fan. If anyone knows me, they know I love a good musician. But he's just been, and I just, I see him every day. He comes home from work and he'll do it. A
Yeah, I
little.
think I could have been a drummer.
That's what, it's funny you said that because I said to Jay, I said, maybe I'll be a drummer. Like, who knows? And they have such amazing things now. A lot of my friends' children who do it. When I was a kid, if you wanted to do drumming, your parents were like, "Oh Lord," because now you have like, and it. But now they have like these little devices that you could, just do, and they're so compact and simulate, you learning the drum. So what? Maybe who knows? I might pick it up the next time you see me. I
Well,
might be practicing drum.
you can drum with knives and forks
Exactly right, Otto. We could just start our
on a
own
table
our PI
with
band.
glasses that you use for certain different sounds.
I don't
I've
use
done it.
anything. But I
Talking
just think that it's something, there's little things that you could do. And I think that the new year is like a good time to listen. I'm not a big resolution person. I don't like the pressure that people put on themselves
trauma.
with. I do. I think it sets you up for kind of disappointment and failure. That's just been my kind of thing. But I always like to, you kind of reflect on things and just and has set goals and things that you want to try and do. So it's just but I think a hobby is a great thing, to pick up, and like it could be something so simple that you can do. So, and also in this newsletter are tips on how seniors can stay active during the winter. We're always preaching the importance of staying active, and they just had some little bulleted tips, and it was trying indoor activities such as yoga, tai chi, or dancing. And even I know it's a tricky topic, but there's so many different games that you can play now, electronic games on the phone. And I think that this actually can be beneficial to people who are even anxious, or if you're a senior, there's such a variety. My mom is quite the player of like these little games on her phones, because when she's feeling anxious, she'll do it. And she feels like it helps. So I think there are these little things that you can do. Obviously, we don't want you to abuse it.
What's her number one game?
It's got some kind of, she always flips around, but I forgot what the one is called that she does recently. I'll have to get it from her, but it's some kind of like colorful, like
Does she play solitaire?
she used to play that one, but I forgot what the name, but they have some kind of crazy new solitaire. I actually just saw a commercial about it recently. So there's a lot, listen, we don't want people to abuse it. We know that you could go on the other spectrum of things, but I think these little things are good to keep your brain stimulated. Of course, on that list, it's about taking up a hobby or going for a walk or hike. I think it's important on days that it is warm, and not free. We don't want people out in the freezing cold, walking around. But I think, on days that it's mild and you're able to bundle up, to still kind of get out there and, do your walk around. Otto, I know you pretty much walk throughout the year. And
Yeah, you know what though? Like I've said on here a few times, these are all good. Like I'm fortunate enough I can walk, all right,
Mhm.
but I do know people who can't, uh,
Yeah.
and they're kind of stuck in the house. So that's probably an area that we should sometime come up with a real long list or show
Mhm.
about how can people who are kind of stuck, if you will, for
Mhm.
health reasons
Yeah.
usually, uh, what could they do? You know, like maybe they can't do yoga, or,
Yeah.
they can't go for a walk or whatever.
Well, I could speak from experience with my grandpa, when because he towards the end of his life couldn't really, wasn't mobile. He had all kinds of, balance and neuropathy in his feet and stuff. So we were always trying to look at like little things to kind of keep him, and they have so many devices now, and then he would just sit in a chair and it was like a little bike pedal kind of thing. Right. So like that he didn't have to move anything besides like his feet. And you can go as slow or as fast as possible. And obviously it depends on what your level of ability is. There's different things. I mean, as far as if your arm strength, I saw like, my grandpa used to pick up all kinds of random things around his house. It wasn't like he had some like, weight room or something, and just move it around, with his arms. I think like it's so important to realize that like the littlest thing can make a difference, right?
This is where we should be doing a commercial for Project Independence,
Yeah.
because you can have a nurse or
Hmm.
social worker visit your home, and maybe they could help you
Yeah,
come up with ideas,
absolutely.
because all the nurses and social workers are terrific people,
Yeah.
and they have the attitude that they want to help. So it wouldn't hurt to have one of them visit somebody,
Absolutely. And
which
I
they can
think,
do now.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Otto, because, we always say this with Project Independence. And listen, I see it firsthand because I'm one of the people that get the initial requests that come in, and I review it and send it, where it needs to go. And I think too, and I always want to encourage people, just to call, right? You know how many calls I see that come in and someone's like, I just need assistance. Like you don't even know what you need. You're like, I just need some help. And I think that that's okay, right? And then we have people who call and say, hey, I want to get my gutters cleaned, but there's a whole bunch of other things that they might need to. So just making that initial call. And as you said, we have the most wonderful social workers and nurses that are on our team. And then on top of that, of course, you have like our Department of Aging staff who are more than willing to help you too. And I love it because sometimes there's some random PI members out there who somehow have my direct line and just will call me and ask me questions about random things. So and then of course we have transportation. I don't want people to forget, our mobility manager, Shari, is constantly, working with people on transportation options too. So I think it's
Well, I
important to know
mean,
that you don't need to, and that's the beauty of our 3-in-1 call center, is that you don't need to know, what you necessarily are looking for. You just might want to know what's offered. There's no pressure into accepting anything or doing anything. You kind of have a conversation and see what your needs are.
yeah, and that would be, I think the thing that people have to realize, and hopefully some do, a lot do, is that the nurses and social workers and Project Independence may not be who actually does something.
Right.
All right. The beauty of Project Independence is it has a tremendous base of support that they're partners with,
Hmm.
that the nurse or social worker will evaluate your situation and say, okay, such and such could really be helpful to you.
Right.
Like if you have a vision problem and you can't see very well, uh, they would be able to hook you up with other people who could help you as far
Yeah.
as the vision problems go.
No,
Uh,
you're so right. And I think that that's what is so special, because I think about just our daily email exchanges amongst our staff, and we're a small little staff, but we're each of us in different realms of our life come into contact with different resources or organizations. I it's great because of the radio program. I'm constantly sending out resource information to our staff. And I'm now making these connections that these organizations reach out to me all the time and say, hey, we have this, new thing that we want to, we have, Metro PT who we've had on like multiple times on our radio program, and have done, they just reached out to me this week and said, hey, we'd love to do some programming. We have these balance machines, and I'm just, after the radio show, I have a call with this organization that does kind of like at-home medical stuff. So it's really great that PI and, largely because of the radio, and making these connections, I'm always getting these phone calls about it. So it's really a great source of resource information our social workers and nurses have. So
which would take you months to make phone calls to find
right,
these
of course,
places.
and I'm in the field, right? I've been doing this for a very, very long time now, and I'm constantly learning and finding out about new programs that are out there. So when in doubt, call 311 or 516-869-6311 for whatever you might need, right? So I just want people to always know. And I want to remind people I think we might be coming up with a break. I saw our fabulous Wizard of Oz popped on the screen. So once again, call 311 if you need anything, and we will be back with Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
WCWP is your home for great music and great conversation. You'll find all that and more on WCWP.org. Listen live on the web, check out the lineup, subscribe to podcasts, and stay up to date on the latest station events. Get in touch with us and let us know if you like what you're hearing. And find out how you can support or get involved at the only community public radio station serving Nassau's North Shore. Plus, sign up to get a free bumper sticker. It's all online at WCWP.org.
And welcome back to Project Independence and You, Community Talk Radio, here on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. We are in the last segment of Talk of the Town in our first show of 2023. I am Kristina Liu, your host, and I am speaking with my co-host, Otto Los, and we are just recapping all kinds of wonderful things and services that are available to you in North Hempstead. So that's right. It's just, you simply call one number and you have access to all these great things. So I want to also just do a plug for one of the fabulous organizations we are partnered with, is EAC. EAC provides the services for our social workers, so that they're contracted through EAC, but they also do our respite program. They are looking for people who, on both sides, right, who are willing to come out to provide this respite for people who, are at home, right? So the respite portion of it gives a break to the caregiver to do things that they might need to do. You're matched on, they match you on based upon interest or whatnot. It's a really flexible hours. You usually have between 2 and 4 assessments every month. It's really good for people who are retired, or if you are a student, and you're able to, make some extra money while helping, someone that needs it, that's homebound essentially. So,
Christina, typically the in-home respite is once a week.
Yeah, so it's really
more than once a week. And
yeah. So the hours are really
it's
flexible. So you're
Okay.
able to really kind of say what you're willing to do or what you're able to do. It's usually, most of our volunteers, it's once a week for just a few hours. And it's really just, you're not doing any kind of hands-on medical things by any means. It's really just like conversation or activities. I think you usually get paid, it's anywhere, I think it's usually around $15 an hour, but you get to choose your schedule and what area you want to be in. There's training available. So I think, if it's something that you might be interested in doing, anyone listening, you can obviously call 311, or you can call EAC directly, and that's 516-539-0150, extension 215 or 218.
Now, if you're on the receiving end
Yes.
of that, my understanding is that the fees are between $5 and $12 an hour.
Yes. So, but
The other
project
the $15
was
the
to the
person
person
gets,
getting paid.
but
Exactly.
EAC
Right.
contributes.
But if you're for Project Independence, though, you're a Project Independence member, you do not pay anything.
Oh, it's free.
Yes, because we
Okay.
are contracted with them. We have a contract where you don't have to pay for that. So that's a great point, Otto. I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's really certainly something important. As
So this person who visits basically um, visits somebody who's homebound pretty much.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
and it's respite because it's called respite because it's essentially giving the caregiver some time to do what the caregiver, needs to do for themselves. So, and it's wonderful relationships. I mean, a lot of the volunteers that have been meeting continuously do it. And I see the creative ways, during when COVID was at its height and it was new, how they were still kind of doing these things were just incredible. And now they're able to kind of be back in person. So if
so
it's
we've
something
got
that,
two sides to this puzzle that
yeah.
should contact. One is the giver of the respite
Mm-hmm.
to somebody, and they're doing something good to help other people,
Yep.
which is the big thing there. And then the receiving end is to help people going through a tough time.
Yeah,
So you
absolutely.
can contact PI from either side.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I always want to remind people that that's out there because they are looking for, volunteers and people, who are interested in, receiving the services too. So call
Uh,
311 for that.
Yeah, and you'd be volunteering with EAC.
Yes.
Um, Empower Assist Care. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah, I mean, it used to, but really now it's EAC has become just kind of
EAC.
everything. Yeah, it used to over the years it's
It's like
changed.
IBM is IBM.
Right, like it's kind and they're just such a wonderful, and as I said, they provide our social work services. So it's really just a great organization. So uh please, if you fall into that category or want to give back, certainly reach out to PI. We have in January, it's a little kind of getting back into the groove of things, but we do have a bunch of our social groups resumed meeting, and I just want to remind people what is out there for you. Our caregiver to a spouse support group is now at the Port Washington Adult Activity Center. That meets on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. I really encourage that group is amazing. When it was virtual, there's a lot of times I had to do the, hosting of it. And it was just, they were such a support for each other. Everyone's kind of at different places in the caregiving journey, which I think actually made it really helpful for people that, might be new to this and just feel so helpless, and the more veterans of the group, would kind of walk them through these things. So if it is something obviously that you are in that situation, I highly recommend joining this caregiver to a spouse support group. So
Roughly, how many people will attend that session?
it's probably about like a handful now. It's probably about like 4 or 5, so they're still accepting, new members all the time for
But
that.
it's not like 50 or 30.
No.
Oh, it's people that can
Yes.
actually interact
Absolutely. Yeah.
with
There's
each other.
never more. There was, I think it's really, a handful,
Okay.
usually to keep it, and that's a great point, Otto, because like the point is for it to be, more of a connective kind of group. But then we have our social discussion group that is still meeting virtual, and that meets on Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. And that's important to note the time change, because that for the next couple of months, it's going to be at 10:30. So I just want people to be aware of that. We have our Golden Hearts bingo and blood pressure screenings that also meets on Thursdays at the Roslyn Community Center at 12 to 1 p.m. And that group is really taking off, which is really, really great. We have our men's group that meets at the Hillside Public Library on Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Of course, we have our Blankets of Love warriors who are just incredible. That is just literally the most incredible group, the work that they do. They meet on Tuesdays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. at Clinton G. Martin Park. And they are just like busting at the seams, that group. And just a quick little overview. In 2022, they made 327 blankets, and those blankets are then donated to so many different causes. So everything from, people who might be homeless, or people who might be, experiencing an illness, or veterans. I mean, it's endless. The amount of organizations is probably close to 20.
I'm assuming that they like all work together and work on
Yeah,
whatever,
so
but
it
then they can
how
also work at home.
exactly.
So
And
you kind of fill two places.
that's exactly what goes on, because they'll, obviously they just meet on Tuesdays, so they're not doing all this on a Tuesday, so they'll be able to take their kind of project home and, start work on it. And then when they all come together on Tuesdays, they'll do this. And it's just such a pleasure to walk past that room. And on top of, them doing these amazing blankets and hats, and they made shawls this year too. And, you just hear the conversations they might be sharing, recipe tips, or, something they saw on TV. It's really just an incredible group. And I just love that. I said that they would really be racking in the dough if they charge for these blankets, because the fact they did 327 blankets is just incredible to me. So shout out to those amazing women. It's such a great group. And the blankets are beautiful to top it off. So I also want people to be encouraged to stay tuned regarding exercise programs. They will probably be kicking off back in February. It's not completely finalized yet, the schedule. I know there were some changes going on. So for anyone that's listening, if you have any questions, you could always call 311 about that, because I know that's a very popular program through PI. So definitely check that out. And then I want to also remind people that a press release came out regarding the e-waste. Certainly, I think we all have a lot of e-waste and are not sure, what exactly to do with our e-waste. And that includes everything from, computers to, laptops to webcams to iPhones to different charging devices. There's a whole host of different things that fall under it. So I just want to tell people, e-waste will no longer be accepted at the Sunday resident drop-off. They can be disposed at only certain dates now. So the first one coming up is going to be Saturday, January 21st from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that's on 802 West Shore Road, Port Washington. So that's the January date. If that is something that you have, I'm sure people have like lying around and don't know what to do with, you can drop it off on that date as well. So check that out. And then, of course, Otto, we have coming up March 18th is our favorite program of all, the Stop program. So I think now is the time to start gathering all the things you want to get rid of. That's always how I start my new year. Once I start taking down my holiday and my Christmas decorations, I have to step back into full gear of organizing and decluttering. And
someday I would like to observe your system for keeping track of this
listen,
stuff.
it's the process itself is messy, but then it always gets to an organized place. I
Do
always
you have to always buy new things, or do you always
No.
have enough on hand?
It depends. Most of the stuff I could pull together. For example, quick funny story. New Year's Eve, I was supposed to spend at my brother's with his fiance, who's my best friend. It works out very well in my world. And we were just supposed to have like an intimate little New Year's. We were going to do a couple of our other friends were going to come by. But of course, 2022, there's illness amongst, different people. So I'm like, oh gosh, like what do we do now, right? I had a dress and I wasn't, I was really excited to wear my sequin dress and I wasn't going to let it go to waste. So I said to Jay, I said, all right, like, we'll just like hang out at home. I definitely have stuff like lying around the house. I could throw together some decorations because there are things that I have. And, my mom was like, all right, she's like, I have some frozen appetizer things and I'll make some stuff. So we pulled it together, and it was just, it was a great time. It was nice. We just been in our home. I had my sequin dress on with my slippers and it was a great time for me.
Well, I saw pictures.
Yeah, it was fun. We just, it was just us. Our friend Tony, came by and my mom came downstairs. We were just watching, different, things with the ball dropping. And it was just low key, but it was, it was something so simple. And I know it's a running joke amongst people that know me and my friends, because I'll just like throw together, because one of my friends called me, she's like, I don't even know how you just whipped out this full spread, like finding out like a couple hours before, that like, New Year's was donezo. And I was like, you know what, you got, where there's a will, there's a way. So I'm the queen of throwing together something quickly.
You watch the people standing in the rain.
Listen, and that is the one thing that I have never done and never wanted to ever do. Is stand in the middle of Times Square. Power to those people. I'm not sure.
I often think about, let's be blunt about it.
The bathroom,
like toilet facilities.
Listen, that's my main thing right there. And I don't want to disgust our listeners, but a friend of mine is a police officer who, often has to work that. And it's quite interesting, the different tactics people will do to do that. But listen, to each his own.
Well, you can't give up your spot.
No,
so
I'm not cut out
do?
for it. It's making me anxious even thinking about having to do that. But if it brings you joy, right, you do that.
I was there once.
See, Otto?
I was about 18 years old. I will not tell you the whole story, but I was there.
That'll have to be for the after.
Actually, I will tell you the story. There was a movie theater called the Roxy, which was a big deal in Manhattan back in those days. And keep in mind, 18 years old, you were of age in New York, all right? So my two buddies and I decided we're going to go into the city and we're going to go to the movies. And this one guy's boss gave him a little bottle that we could take to the city, because back then you could do that, all right? But first we're going to go to the movies in the Roxy, all right? Well, the next thing you know, the guy who was in charge of this little bottle let it fall out and it kept rolling down to the seats in front of us. And we never recovered the bottle.
Well, you probably made someone else's day. You know what?
Probably. And then we went to watch the ball come down. But it was not like today. I mean, there were a lot of people there, but not like now. No. And
that's just, and listen, that in bad weather, you're just adding to it. But like I said, if that is your thing,
it's not mine now, believe me.
It's certainly not mine.
We usually celebrate at 9 o'clock and make believe it's midnight.
I like that. That's right. Everyone can write their own story.
Yes.
But it's certainly hopefully a healthy new year for everyone. I hope we're making progress towards, kind of getting things more under control. And I think it's just a reminder, right? It's to start your new year. It's a fresh slate for you to, kind of change things in your life that you might not be happy with, or keep things the same, whatever, you want to do. And I think we are trying to preach also to stay mindful in all aspects of your life. And on that note, Otto, we have finished our first show of 2023. Sounds so futuristic, here we are. Yeah. But tune in next week. This is Project Independence in You on Community Talk Radio, 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Tune in next week.